garage radio DJs during the 90s, hosts Keith and Steve helped expose bands like Nirvana, Pavement, and PJ Harvey. They went to shows, interviewed musicians, and reviewed albums for various designs and papers. They worked security at concerts and once even did load-in for Fish. Now, they're dads. Whether you want to explore lesser-known music or take a trip down memory lane, tune into the new Dad Rock. Join hosts Keith and Steve as they navigate the ages together, sharing their love of music across various eras and genres. Always well-intentioned, often well-informed, seldom boring, the new Dad Rock will expand your mind.
Welcome to the new Dad Rock.
The new Dad Rock.
Steve. No.
Yes.
Yes. How do you know it's not a no?
You said Steve, and I said yes, as if, yes, that's my name.
Oh, I said, for me it was Steve, and I was going to say something. Steve, I was thinking we should change things up.
You mean stray from the very modus operandi that got us here, vary from the course we have charted, deviate from bringing our listeners the most deviant, delightful music from way left of the dial?
Exactly. We gotta change it up, dude.
Why? We've been listened to in like 90 countries. We've recorded over 50 episodes. What would you want to change up?
Maybe it's more of a pivot. Instead of the new Dad Rock, maybe the new Book Rock.
What?
We become a podcast about books that rock.
Okay, so people still listen to music. Nobody reads books.
Yeah, no.
So you're going from something that a lot of people listen to something that less people listen to.
No. People actually, yeah, you're right. They don't read books, but they listen to books. I mean, there's books on tapes, dude. My kids are listening to their Kindles. Harry Potter's been listened to 6,000 times. They read it the first time, but they listened to it every other time after. So what I'm saying is we pivot to books on tape.
Yeah, we could write some stories and have a narrative every week.
Okay, that sounds like a lot of work. And, well, you and I just, we have day jobs and families. And okay, how's this? What if we tried an episode where we talk about books?
If you want to make a pivot, we'll talk about books.
Yeah.
But let's make them books about music.
Oh, I can do that.
So what do you got?
All right, well,
What?
Okay, I got one. Perfect Sound Forever. It's about Pavement. It's from that book that came our first episode. Well, not our first episode, but episode number 1 that was about the alternative playlist for the Terror Twilight.
So that's where that list was originally published and where that story gained traction and became famous, correct?
Yeah, I don't know if it was anywhere else, but it's where Nigel Goodrich had his list of songs he would have had, which is much better. You can find it on our title link from the episode 1, so Pavement. But it's much, 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 much better. In fact, I wonder how big Pavement would be now if they had listened to Nigel.
Exactly the same as my guess.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
Okay.
So Perfect Sound Forever.
Yeah, by the way,
And
it's a book that's very interesting because it's kind of like cutouts of all their stuff. It's mostly like a scrapbook of Pavement. And I love Pavement, and that started this whole thing. So
Right. So when I think of books and music, not Books on Tape, because there is actually an electronic band called Books on Tape.
Oh.
Sorry for all those people who tuned in to listen to an episode about that band. Whoops. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. All
we are aware of them. Yes. Nonetheless. So the first book I think of associated with music is No One Here Gets Out Alive, which was the biography of Jim Morrison. I must have read that in, call it 1990 or so, maybe when the Doors movie came out in 91, when all that euphoria was going around.
Whoa. I only got into the Doors in college, so 94, 95.
Well, I think they became very popular after that Val Kilmer movie came out in 91.
The Oliver Stone movie. It was awesome. I agree. I thought it was perfect. I totally liked it. It was before YouTube, so the movie was like a long YouTube video, basically. So it... Yeah.
And the book was like going down all the YouTube rabbit holes because you got, all the background, because it's 400 pages. So you get all the detail that is alluded to in the movie. So I actually read a lot of musicians' biographies for some reason.
Yeah, who else you read?
I've read like Tom Petty, Johnny Cash, Scott Ian.
Wait, Scott Ian Anthrax?
Yeah, Scott Ian of Anthrax.
He has a biography?
I read his biography, and interesting fact about Scott Ian, his wife has a father, and that father happens to be Meatloaf.
I was like,
So Meatloaf is Scott Ian's father.
oh my God. At first I was like, oh, she has a father? I'm like, that's not interesting at all. But being Meatloaf's daughter is interesting. I wonder how they talk about music. That must be freaking awesome. On the holidays. Yeah, I love biographies, by the way. And that's how actually I look at philosophy. I was a philosophy major, and I really thought it was important to understand the autobiography or the biography of a philosopher. Like, their thoughts are not independent from their...
You know what they say about philosophy?
It sucks.
It's a walk on the slippery rocks.
Oh, that's nice. Who said that?
Edie Brickell and the New Bohemians.
Oh my God. That's amazing. All right, so other books about music. We've talked about biographies and the first book that inspired an episode. I'm going to say another one. Do you remember the band called... They had a closing time song? Oh, Semisonic. Remember that song? It's closing time.
I remember the song, yeah.
Yeah, they had a book out that, or one of them. So you want to be a rock and roll star? How I machine gunned a room full of record executives and other true tales from a drummer's life. And this is from the early 90s, I believe. And this song was huge. Closing time.
Yeah, everybody knows that song.
Yeah, but they had one song. So it was so interesting to read about what happened to this band. This is before the internet, before YouTube, like before everything. And this is being in the machine.
Before podcasts.
Exactly. Thankfully. But it was basically about like how you had to join the machine to be distributed. And it's a brutal biography or a brutal history. They had this one song, man. I'm not sure what they're doing now. They might be in real estate. They might be plumbers.
Yeah. So another book along those lines that I read was Our Band Could Be Your Life, which was, it wasn't really about one band, but it was a lot of the punk bands that came up in the 80s. So like Black Flag, Husker Du, Replacement, Sonic Youth, Butthole Surfers, Dinosaur Jr., Minor Threat, Mudhoney, all these bands coming up. And I think what I learned reading these biographies is that touring sucks. Mm-hmm. And like you said, there's not really a lot of money in it. You're just doing it, because you have to, because you have no other choice.
Touring was the big moneymaker for most musicians for the last couple of decades. But it's a brutal existence. I mean, I'm sure it's great. And if you're in your teens or your 20s, it's amazing. But like, I don't see how you have longevity touring.
Yeah, well, that's why a lot of these great bands, they have a peak period of like 5 years. And that's about probably how long you could live that lifestyle and keep your sanity, or even, maybe you succumb to that. But you look back, these 5-year runs that a band like Iron Maiden or Van Halen or Led Zeppelin or The Who or the Beatles, for that matter, any of these bands, you're talking about a 5, maybe 7-year run at the most.
Wait, so we have 5 to 7 years to take over the world like Bill and Ted's Wild Stallions?
Yeah, we could still be in the early phases of like the garage band, and the clock hasn't really started yet. So
I agree.
Get on board, people. You're getting in at the ground floor here.
Oh my God. Okay. Hey.
Yeah.
Hey. So I want to change it up a little. The most amazing book about music that I've ever read, it was Narcoritos. It's by Elijah Wald. And Narcoritos are basically like, I swear to you, Mexican country songs about drug dealers.
Yes.
They are amazing.
Did you ever watch Breaking Bad?
No, not really.
So, one, you should really watch that show.
Okay.
What rock have you been living under? And 2, there are at least a couple of episodes where the beginning song is a Narcarito, and it's kind of cool how they bring the culture right into the show and show you that. So yeah, I was aware of it through Breaking Bad, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are. But Keith, man, really.
Well, so the thing about Narcoritos to me, and narco is drugs, and corrido is, I guess, song, but it's like a story about a drug dealer or a vandal or a robber, like a Robin Hood. And they would,
it's like a modern day Wild Wild West.
yeah, and they would commission these songs. So you'd have these people, and like these Narcoritos were crazy, dude. You should read about Narcoritos. It connects local Nortano music, which is Mexican music with like accordions and big basses, with the Narcos, the Netflix episodes. Like it gives you the history of the drugs and the music together. Super phenomenal.
Yeah, well, that reminds me a little bit of Roberto Bolaño, 2666.
Oh my God.
Which has, it's really 5 intertwined stories, and one of them takes place right on the Juarez El Paso border, and that's where a lot of the I think it was some sort of factory, and there was a lot of narco related killings there, but not a lot of music in that book.
Wait, hold on. So, if you're talking about El Paso and Ciudad Juarez, did you see the latest Narcos episode on Netflix?
I've not watched the latest season.
Oh, you gotta watch it.
I'm an avid fan of the show and have seen all the other ones.
Yeah, okay. So it's based on that time period or that interaction, that space. I just came across a book. Oh my God. I don't remember how I came across this book. It was called El Paso. It's a band. Oh my God, this is amazing. I have no idea how I found this book. But it's called El Paso. It tells the story of this band that never was successful. Which, by the way, sounds very like my band.
It's not Beto O'Rourke's band, is it?
Oh, no. He wrote the intro to this. He saw them at a show in El Paso. I think Beto O'Rourke's from El Paso. And it was like this punk band that just wanted to be like all the other punk bands. But what happens is the lead guitarist dies in a car accident, recording the last or the only album by the band. And so the last song with no lyrics, which he played on, they sang about him. His name was Octavio. And so it's really weird. And then the person who's the main like runner of the band disappears, and you can't find anything else about him afterwards. So El Paso, a punk story. I love that book.
So that reminds me a little bit of Your Favorite Band Cannot Save You, which was published by Tor Books, it's a famous science fiction and fantasy imprint. So it was kind of funny that this story, it's really a novella. It's a short novel. Your Favorite Band Cannot Save You. It's about this music blogger who finds the next cool band, and one thing leads to another, and they're able to join that band because band members have died, and the show is basically marching the world toward the apocalypse, and even being in that band, it can't save you. So a very bizarre, almost science fiction like take on the next cool band. And a lot of it does take place in Texas. So, again, reminding me of El Paso.
So, one of my favorite music books is this 33 and a Third book series. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, we can't talk about books and music and not mention that 33 and a Third series.
Dude, they're so smart. I wonder who does that.
I'm sure it's easy to look up. But essentially what this is, 33 and a Third series, talks about one album. And it's usually a small, almost 3x5 size paperback book.
Yep.
With, maybe 100, 120, 140 pages. And it can be a straightforward talking about the album. It could be an oral history of the album. It could be fiction inspired by the album. So, for example, the PJ Harvey Rid of Me is... some sort of fan fiction about, Girls on the Run. John Darnielle did a Black Sabbath Master of Reality book about his time when he was working in mental facilities. And then I've also read like The Afghan Wigs or Ween, where it's a pretty straightforward review of the album. In Ween's case, more of an oral history. What are the books that you read, Keith?
Oh my God, I have a bunch of those. I also have The Who Sell Out, Wowie Zowie by Payment, Unknown Pleasures by Joy Division, Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables by Dead Kennedys, Trout Mask Replica by Captain Beefheart. I have Murmur by R.E.M. I have My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West. I mean, there's so many of these books. I used to walk up Fillmore Street in San Francisco and I'd buy a book. Like, there's just so many. I don't know how many they have now, but I love them all. But what's weird about them is, or not weird about them, or it's the thing about them, is it's literally whatever the author wants to say about the book. So it might be more about how they discovered the music. It might be more about how they met the artist. It might be more highfalutin than that.
Actual musicians, our point is actual musicians like John Darnielle of Mountain Goats have written these books as well. One last thing about John Darnielle, and we'll move on from this subject, but he also has been writing fiction. He has, I think his third book is coming out at the beginning of this year, at the beginning of 2022. But he did write a book earlier, Wolf in the White Van and American Harvester, but fiction, and he's a legitimate fiction writer.
I think the John Darnielle I know is Eugene. Eugene was on some of our episodes earlier. And I think it's just someone who loves music, is really good at music, and loves writing songs.
And stories.
Yeah, totally. No, I mean, Eugene has done phenomenally in the science fiction arena. Hey, last book I want to talk about is my own book, Keith and the Terrorist. It's a coffee table book, shot by Matt Wakefield. It's pretty awesome. Have you seen it?
I saw, I think, proofs for it, but I feel like it was largely out of my price range on the
Totally. Yes, it was. Yeah, it's out of the price range, but like, I thought it was pretty cool that a friend of mine who lived next to me could take pictures of a band and put together for a band album.
Yeah, and make it look like an actual band.
Yes.
So podcasters 20 years from now recounting the odd bands and the weird things that they saw in their youth could come across Keith and the Terrorists and be like, oh, there's a book on Keith and the Terrorists. They were huge. They were as big as I remember. Yes. And that's part of the thing is there's mythology that comes through these books, whether you're reading some of the Mick Wall biographies. He's done stuff like Iron Maiden, Sabbath, Metallica, or whether it's Greg Prato. So this guy, Greg Prato, I don't know if you know his name, Prato, if I'm mispronouncing it. He wrote a book on Primus. He did an oral history of Maiden's first couple albums. He even wrote a Blind Melon book. But if you look on allmusic.com or Consequence of Sound, or this guy's name pops up everywhere. It's crazy.
You named like everything in our genre. He has a yacht rock album. He has a Primus album.
Yeah.
He has a Grunge is Dead. I mean, he pretty much sounds like he stole our podcast.
Or maybe he was the precursor. Speaking of books, I have a David Bowie coloring book.
What? You actually you color a book?
It was given to me as a gift.
Yeah.
I've not colored it at all.
Why not?
No, partially because there was no colored pencils that came with it. Despite the fact that I have 3 kids and there are a ton of colored pencils in my house.
Yeah, no. I like it.
I didn't have my own colored pencils.
Yeah, that's
so
fair.
Maybe that's part of it. And I think you would need a good periwinkle blue to fully do some of the early 70s Bowie.
All right, so what did we learn tonight? Writing about music is almost as stupid as having a podcast.
How so?
The whole point is you can talk about music all you want, but unless you listen to it, it doesn't matter.
I don't know. Like, us talking about music could potentially get people interested in hearing about it. And I like to get hyped about stuff. So sometimes you hear people talking about how excited they are about seeing this band. And you're like, oh, you have to check this out because these guys did this and they sound like that. So check it out. And, maybe you get a new appreciation for it.
Okay, 100%. That's exactly why we do this at all. We're trying to give our friends, our family, like our listeners in 90 countries, me. Yeah, seriously, me. I know books aren't music. They're not.
Books on tape.
Yeah, they can be, but they're not the same as listening to music. It's so visceral. It's so awesome.
Well, here's one last thing, and I think everyone thought they got away with me not talking about King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard tonight, but I have to bring this up as the last point. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, their second album, is called Eyes Like the Sky, is actually a Western story that Ambrose's dad reads, and they play this music, spaghetti Western style, almost Calexico, Americana folk music. It's a tale of the Wild West, and it's just crazy. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, music on tape, books on tape, the new dad rock.
I've never heard